I'm a bit of a pen and marker nut. I'm going to completely admit it. I love every single color we've got. Sharpies are amazing. And what I'm going to be talking about for about the next couple moments, and this is just an introduction to something. And I have all these things here to say there's no right utensil to use for this next task. Although, if you get a little bit to be a little bit of a perfectionist, the pencil is the way to go. Unless you can get some of those erasable pens, and well, engineers have come up with a lot of stuff these days. What we're going to be talking about is something that you may think you're horrible at, but sketching. Oh, and that is not the best marker. We're just going to have to get rid of that. Sketching is a form of visual communication. It shares an idea that is hard to describe with only words. It is not always perfect. You might have to add words to it to complete what you're doing. When we're talking about sketching, some might say, I can't do that. It's hard. Let me show you. You want to design a house. I want the roof to come to a point, but what kind of point? Well, if I say I want the roof to come to a point over the door, and I want a circular window up there, it makes more sense if you just use a simple picture. Now, as I already mentioned, pencils are the best tool for the job, likely. But right now, they're kind of hard for you to see right on my sheet of paper. One example. Yeah, not so much. So I'm going to erase that and go back to the Sharpie. It's about choosing the right tool for the job. Now, as I mentioned, sketching is visual communication. It's a way to take your ideas, and they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So say, for instance, you're designing a sandcastle. And I'm going to put a turret. Here's my sand. And then I have the bigger part right here. Notice my lines overlap right here. This is not perfect. Sketching gets across an idea to somebody else so that they can start to understand what you're designing. With this, I might say, okay, I want this to have a turret up at the top. Oh, don't want that. That looks pretty good so far. But somebody's telling me I need a door. All right, well, I could do a door right here. I need some windows. This is my ground. And I want a tower. It might be really cool to draw lines for bricks. What I'm doing with this is I'm annotating my sketch. I'm adding notes. I know there's no E, but I'm adding notes on my drawings. I'm annotating them. This is something we'll do to help communicate ideas even further. So I want this, but then maybe I'll have this be a plastic piece. Oops, I spelled it wrong. I just write it. This is not neat. This is not perfection. But somebody else looking at this drawing would start to figure out what my idea with this is a little bit better than if I left it completely blank, like right over here. Now, we all know sand falls apart. So would we put the windows all the way through? Probably not. So I would say only goes 1 inch deep. This would be somebody's shoe. Because goodness knows, creating a door when you're trying to create something out of sand can be a challenge. Would I want this to be, let's say, 3 feet tall? Now, in dry conditions, that's a little bit of a stretch. And let's make this covered in jewels. Covered in jewels is a little bit of a stretch, right? But sketching is a way to communicate what you are thinking and using the picture as a way to help communicate that. Brainstorming. This is a lot of fun. There will be times where you say, I don't have any ideas. I don't know what to do, what to think about. And that's where brainstorming comes into play. Brainstorming is a group of techniques for solving problems, generating ideas, stimulating creativity and creative thinking, etc. It's the idea that we collect ideas without regard to feasibility. How many times have you had that absolute crazy idea and everybody looks at you with a blank stare? Like, they don't know what you're talking about. What are you thinking? But then the next person comes up with another idea that's not quite as crazy, but actually helps solve the problem. That's brainstorming. It's throwing ideas out there without regard to feasibility. And feasibility means, okay, this should work. But sometimes we need the crazy ideas to get to the ones that will work. Now, there are a couple of rules. I know. You're like, we're supposed to be finding something without feasibility? And we're talking about rules? Yes. They're not the types of rules you would be thinking of. But no criticism is allowed. Oops. No criticism. Think crazy. Work for quantity. You know, so many times we get hung up on quality that we forget other ideas. But some of those other ideas, when we get a whole bunch of them, will then narrow down to better quality. We welcome piling it on. That means, okay, somebody has one idea. Then the next person adds on to it. Well, wait a minute. What if we did this? It's like you're trying to figure out what to do with your friends after school. Wearing your masks, of course. But now, forget that last comment. And here I am, I'm criticizing myself for what I was saying. In reality, it's like, oh, well, we could go for pizza. And somebody says, oh, pizza with sausage and anchovies. And you just kind of wave it off because you're not the biggest anchovy fan, but you're going to let them throw out that idea. And somebody says, well, let's look at the menu to see what else they have and if they have individual sized pizzas. So you keep adding on to it to get to a better one. And allow a free-for-all. You might be saying, but then Mrs. Arnett, we're not going to get anything done. But here's the thing. If you put a time limit and say, okay, I think we've got enough ideas, after just a bunch of rapid fire, you've got a bunch to work off already. So then we go ahead to the next thing. All right. We have all the ideas possible. Well, no, we don't have all the ideas possible, but we've allowed everybody to talk. We've just put all these ideas out there. And now we have something as a foundation for what we want to do. Now, there are different ways to do this. You could have freeform. Where we're just writing notes all over. So let's say pizza. We want to build something, build pizza, and we're going all over the page. We might go, all right, so what about forcing an association? Somebody wants pizza and ice cream, but you can't get the pizza and ice cream at the same place. So how do you start planning to get both of those? So, well, the grocery store has both. So we could go to the grocery store, get a frozen pizza and a container of ice cream, and we'd be all set. But that could lead to another problem where somebody doesn't have access to a stove or it's really, really hot. But that's why we brainstorm to get those creative ideas going. We will go over more formal techniques, but these are some of the places where we're going to get started to go with our activity for today.